This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Joining me now is Congressman Bruce Westerman. He represents the 4th Congressional District of Arkansas. Good to have you with us, Congressman. Hadn't seen you in a while. Nice to catch up with you.
Yeah, good to be with you, Roby. Even if it is virtually, I'm honored to get to visit with you.
All right, Congressman, let's start with the news of the day. President Joe Biden has said he is going to stick with his August 31st deadline for withdrawing troops from Afghanistan. I guess just the most basic question, do you agree that that deadline should be met? Do you agree that we should even be withdrawing from Afghanistan?
Well, Roby, I was actually at a classified briefing this morning where we talked about more things than I can probably talk about on TV right now. But no, I do not agree with the August 31st deadline. I don't think that deadline should have ever been put in place. I think it was okay to withdraw from Afghanistan, but to do that in a much better planned method, using the intelligence that we had and not setting arbitrary deadlines. And really, I mean, we've seen it play out before our eyes, the tragedies that are happening there. And I don't think we can get all the Americans out by August 31st. And we certainly can't get all the Afghans out who helped us for 20 years there in Afghanistan. So you think of all the American blood that was shed there, all the, I think 70,000 Afghans who died over the 20-year period fighting against these evil forces. And to see us withdrawing in a manner where we're basically trying to get out of town as fast as possible, it's disheartening to me, and I wish it weren't this way. And I really hope that the administration and the leadership go back and tell the Taliban, we're not leaving August 31st. We're going to get all Americans out. And if they don't like that, they're going to deal with the consequences.
So it sounds like you agree with the decision to leave Afghanistan, but obviously not the execution of the exit strategy here. Do you think it was possible for us to leave Afghanistan in a way that would have been a peaceful transfer of power, and we would not have seen the kind of the circumstances that we have? Because the Taliban clearly did not go away over 20 years of us trying to build that nation.
So whether or not the Taliban would have come back into power or not, I think that's really hard to answer. I think they would have, but I don't think they would have done it in this amount of time. And I don't think we would be scrambling in the panic that we're in to try to get Americans and those who helped our forces out of the country so quickly. I think this could have been done in a way where we left the country to the government that we helped establish in Afghanistan. And if the Taliban and ISIS and Al Qaeda were to come back into power, then that would be on the Afghan government. But this is totally chaotic, what's happened. I think it was unavoidable. I think they had the intelligence to avoid it. And I think it was basically on because of bad decision making. And it's hurt our standing around the globe. And plus we've left a lot of military equipment there, and people say, oh, but they can't maintain it, they can't operate it. But I bet you the Chinese and the Russians can figure out how to maintain and operate that equipment that we left behind.
If they don't already have some of that equipment or its blueprints already. Let's talk about the Afghan refugees that you've suggested that will be fleeing that country or attempting to flee that country too. Arkansas has been offered as a safe haven for them. Governor Asa Hutchinson said earlier today he did not think that Fort Chaffee was really up in the top tier list of where they might locate, but he has extended a welcome to any Afghani refugees. Do you support Arkansas being a safe haven for Afghani refugees?
Well, I support the U.S. being a safe haven for those who helped us, whose lives are at stake. If you want to talk about political asylum, these are people who definitely need political asylum for their safety, for their very lives. The information I have is that Fort Chaffee is off of the table, but there are various bases around the U.S. that are being used to house these folks. We need to do a good job of vetting them before they come here. That's actually in the plans. And, you know, I have to commend again the U.S. military for the job that they're doing. They've been tasked with a mission that it's probably not one they would have asked for, to retreat like they're doing, to have to execute a mission that I don't think is a good mission to begin with, but they're doing it with the professional attitude and execution that they always do. So they're taking these refugees to bases not in the U.S., and they're vetting them there, and then they're flying people here to the U.S. But if there's some way Arkansas can help, I think we certainly should be willing to do that, because these people put their life on the line, they put their families' lives on the line to help our troops during the 20-year war.
What do you think are some of the lessons of the last 20 years? And when we saw, obviously a little bit ahead of our time, but in Vietnam, that was a war, a conflict that really there could not be the type of victory that we're used to, such as in World War I or World War II. This, again, this conflict has the same kind of end result here, where the things have not ended as we planned. What's the lesson, I guess, for the modern day era, for what we should think about as we look at places like Afghanistan that are hot spots, trouble spots throughout the world? Can the U.S. be that police force that kind of keeps order and chaos from reigning?
I think you have to look at the good work that the U.S. military did, and the fact that we haven't had terrorist attacks like we saw on 9/11 of 2001 since we've been fighting in Afghanistan. So it wasn't all for naught. And I believe that when we had a small troop presence there in Afghanistan, and we had the airport and the bases there, that we were able to react quickly to any kind of plans that the Taliban would have to come back in power. But the way we've exited so rapidly, I think it's leaving a bad taste in most people's mouths about all the work that was done over this 20-year period, and to see us leave the country in a way that we shouldn't have to be leaving the country. I think it's going to provide a safe haven for these groups to reform. And I think the lesson we can learn is that you can go in and spend a lot of money and expend a lot of our young men and women's lives in protecting our country. But at the end of the day, these bad actors are still bad actors, and they're going to raise their head back up. And this may have seemed the expedient thing to do right now, but I think in the future we're going to have to pay for it again.
But just to be really clear, yes or no, you agree, yes or no, with leaving Afghanistan? We should have left Afghanistan. Yeah,
I think we should. I don't know that we should have totally left, but I think reducing forces, getting people back here, and doing it in an orderly manner. And I know President Trump had proposed leaving Afghanistan, but he also made it clear to the Taliban that he wouldn't tolerate any kind of harm to Americans, and he wouldn't tolerate them being aggressive in retaking the country. And I think this administration has negotiated with the Taliban without any real consequences for the Taliban. And you see that as they are rapidly advancing. And the administration was caught off guard when they shouldn't have been. I think they had the intelligence where they wouldn't have had to have been caught off guard like that, but they didn't heed the intelligence, nor did they react appropriately to the things that were happening. And they trusted people that can't be trusted.
All right, let's turn our attention to Arkansas. COVID-19, we are seeing once again a terrible spike in cases over the last several weeks, expected to go higher according to a new UAMS projection that's just out today, Tuesday. What do you think should be done? What do you advocate should be done to get this under control? Are we past the point of letting people's personal freedoms and doing whatever they want to do rule the day in order to get this COVID-19 pandemic under control?
Well, Roby, we've tried just about every path you can go down so far, with masks, with quarantining, with shutting down the economy. And as you said, we're seeing more and more cases. I think everybody probably knows people who have been deathly sick with COVID and people who have died from it. So, personally, I got the vaccine early on, and I'm glad that I did that. I'm glad that we had the scientists and the researchers and the whereabouts here in this country to come up with a vaccine. And as you know, the FDA recently approved the Pfizer vaccine. So the FDA said it's safe for people to get vaccinated. We've got a lot of misinformation out of our health officials here in DC that makes it hard for us who aren't health professionals to understand exactly what it is that we should or shouldn't do. But I think the evidence is that if you get vaccinated, you're in better shape dealing with the COVID virus than if you're unvaccinated.
Let's be clear, there are some mixed messages coming from federal health officials at times. There's also a lot of misinformation everywhere. People are searching for information that has also played a role in not letting everybody be on the same page in terms of how to resolve this. Would you agree?
Absolutely. The internet is not it's a source of a lot of information, but it's not the source of a lot of information that can be trusted at times. So, but people want to know the truth. I think it's something innate with for whatever reason, that's hard for people to do right now. It's hard as a policymaker to, when you hear something from a federal agency that you think is supposed to be the truth, and then their story changes. So we've got to do a better job of sticking to the science and presenting it, and wading through the misinformation that gets generated online a lot of times and in the press.
But you're just devil's advocate here. You're a data guy. I know you've got that in your background. It's what most engineers rely on right there. I mean, when the data changes and you get new information, it causes you to change your mind about stuff, does it not?
Yeah, it does. But, we're dealing with life and death issues here. And you want to know that the data is trusted. We had an issue here inside the House where we have the attending physician who is supposed to give the health guidelines for members of Congress, who recently implemented a policy based on something that CDC put out that we found out later was based on a report that came out of India that hadn't even been peer reviewed. So, to me, that's unacceptable when you're getting data like that and you want to trust it at face value, and then you look back and find out that it was not good data to begin with. But I know there's also been a lot of research, and there is a lot of good data on the efficiency of the vaccines. And you can find whatever information you're looking for on whether or not to take the vaccine. But I think the overwhelming data is that you're in much better shape to have been vaccinated than to not have been vaccinated.
All right, let's talk about Arkansas's population shift. We've got some recent census numbers here. Clearly, the 4th Congressional District, which you represent, is going to get geographically a lot larger than it already is. I believe it's already a challenge geographically to serve this district here. What's your anticipation for what will happen with the 4th District, and how challenging does that make your job?
Yeah, well, it's obviously up to the state legislature on how they redraw the congressional districts. And the one thing we know is that the 4th District has to gain more population because it lost population in the census. Now, you can look at the maps and you can come up with ways where you do that with taking in more geography, or you can do it with ways where you take in areas with higher concentration of people. I don't know what the legislature will do, but I enjoy serving the people of the 4th District, and whatever lines they draw, I'll be happy trying to represent those folks in Congress.
Do you have a preference for what you'd like to see done in the 4th District? I'll give you the platform right now to tell those legislators how you'd prefer the 4th District be redrawn.
Yeah, I'm going to leave that up to them. I really shouldn't have have an influence in that because that's the job of the state legislature. I was in the legislature when the last lines were drawn, and I was in the minority, so I didn't have any kind of influence over it then. So I'm serving in a district that was drawn without my influence, and hopefully in the future I'll be serving in one that was drawn without my influence.
Rumor has it that last congressional map was drawn with crayons that you loaned to Clark Hall, the state representative at the House State Agencies Committee. So,
yeah, I heard it was drawn with crayons, but I did not loan them to him.
Okay. Let's talk about two other issues that are 4th District related. One relates to forest fires. We're seeing year after year these tragedies in California and parts of the Western U.S. I know you've been a big supporter of a lot of reforms in that respect. What about what's happening here in Arkansas? Do you see good practices here in Arkansas? Are you concerned about similar type disasters happening eventually here in Arkansas because of whether it's climate change or mismanagement or what other reasons could be out there?
Yeah, and again, we can talk about a lot of data on this issue, but in this Congress, I'm serving as the ranking member on the Natural Resources Committee, so I'm the lead Republican on that committee. And I've actually been doing some committee work in August where I've traveled out west and I've visited some of these areas where the forests are stressed, where they've been mismanaged, and where we're seeing these catastrophic wildfires. Arkansas has a great story to tell. If you look at the data from Arkansas, last year there were 44 million tons of wood grown in the forest of Arkansas. The forest products industry harvested about 24 million tons. So that leaves a net growth of about 20 million tons across the state. So that's a huge increase in the growing stock of the forest of Arkansas, while we're supporting a very vibrant forest products industry there. We have drier conditions, we have hotter conditions in Arkansas, but we are not seeing the catastrophic wildfires that they're seeing out west. And it's not just out west. The Superior National Forest in northern Minnesota is undergoing tremendous wildfires right now. They've actually had to close the Boundary Waters canoe area because of those wildfires. So I'm very proud of the state of Arkansas and the job that we do on private land, on state land, and also on federal land. There's a lot more that we could do to make our forest more productive and to even grow rural economies more, which gets back to that question about population in the rural areas. If you don't have an economy there for people to make a living, you're going to lose people. And we've got a tremendous opportunity, I think, to create more jobs in rural Arkansas if we utilize the resources that we have. And it's not just timber. We have a lot of, we're very blessed with natural resources. I'll say it that way.
Lastly, let's talk about, I think I've been doing this TV show for 22 years now, and I feel like from the beginning of doing this TV show, I've been talking about the potential for Interstate 49, which would connect New Orleans to Kansas City. That would run up through a big stretch of the 4th Congressional District there. Are we any closer to securing funding to make that I-49 project move forward? What seems to be the limitation on that?
Roby, you're getting old. That's a long time to be doing that. I see.
I started when I was 6 years old. I'll caveat that. How about that?
Yeah, and you're getting a little bit of that gray in there, just like I am. But I would love to see more work on Interstate 49. It's the part in the 4th District. We're getting down to where definitely the bulk of the completion of Interstate 49 would happen in the 4th District. And before long, it'll be the only part of 49 that's not complete. And as you mentioned, it provides a connector from the Gulf of Mexico all the way to Kansas City, where you've got 2 interstates going north up to Canada. We're talking about a $1.2 trillion infrastructure package here in Congress. There would be no funding, as far as I can see, in that package that would help with Interstate 49. So that makes it very difficult for me to support an infrastructure package or so-called infrastructure package when it's not going to benefit folks in Western Arkansas and really all of Arkansas and the region that benefits from having Interstate 49. When we marked the transportation bill up in the House the first time, there was a provision in there that said you could construct no new highways. You could only use the funding to do repairs on existing highways. So to answer your question, no, we're not getting any closer to doing Interstate 49. We would actually have to go back and redo part of the NEPA analysis. That's the environmental analysis on building Interstate 49 because it's so long since that work has been done. It's frustrating. It doesn't make sense to me why we wouldn't prioritize that more, but you know, the infrastructure bill that's out there now is more about mass transit and being beneficial to urban areas than to rural areas.
So I understand you saying that you're not supportive of that bipartisan infrastructure bill because it really doesn't bring a whole lot to your district per se. If it did allow for new construction to complete like an I-49 project, or if there was something in there for I-49, would you be amenable to supporting an infrastructure package if it had something to benefit the 4th district in that respect?
Yeah, as long as it didn't have a lot of stuff in it that didn't need to be in an infrastructure bill. And I think that's where we are right now. I would like to see the infrastructure bill focused on infrastructure. And to me, that's roads, highways, bridges, navigable waterways, airports. It would include some mass transit. It would include broadband. But I think we could do a bill closer to a $500 billion and do a lot more in those areas than what this bill at $1.2 trillion currently would do.
So you don't support the bipartisan Senate bill that's come over from that chamber to the House?
Not in its current form. Again, we'll get a chance to mark that up, and I'll be able to give you a lot better feedback on that after the markup, which I think is going to happen here in the next couple of weeks.
All right. Well, we'll follow back up with you with that. He is Congressman Bruce Westerman. He represents the 4th Congressional District of Arkansas. Thank you so much for your time, Congressman. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Roby. Have a good day.